Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, 2022 and Beyond, the Future of IT Services. Are you ready? Before we get started, I would just like to list some housekeeping items. First, everybody is muted and your video is off, but if you'd like to ask a question, please feel free to use the chat feature or wait until the Q&A portion of the presentation, and I can unmute you if you'd like. Two, this webinar is being recorded and will be sent out to you at a later date. And lastly, if you have any follow-up questions after the webinar has ended, please feel free to email solutions@diopath.com with your questions, and I will get them directed to the right person. So getting started, I'd like to introduce our panelists. First, we have Matt Briggs, Director of New Business Development, and Jesse Alexander, our DIOPATH Chief Revenue Officer. And now I'll hand it over to you guys.
Thanks, Jordan. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, as always, for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for a discussion, in this case on IT support and managed services, as we look to somewhat of a new normal as we come out of the pandemic in 2022 and beyond. And as I think everyone knows, the IT support model and IT operations in general is going to have a different look and feel and have to be different as we move forward versus previous models. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Briggs, Director of New Business Development. As Jordan said, I celebrated my 20th anniversary with DIOPATH earlier in the year. I have a passion for ensuring technology enables organizations to meet strategic goals and objectives while also solving problems and mitigating risk. As far as the agenda is concerned, we'll start by reviewing the objectives of the session, provide you with a quick recap of DIOPATH's capabilities, discuss the DIOPATH maturity model in detail, call out challenges that organizations are having relative to IT operations, because we all have challenges that need to be identified and addressed. And then we like to help you start thinking of ideas on how to move forward. And lastly, we'll give a quick demo of our Power BI integration with our ITSM ticketing system and phone system, and we'll review a few case studies as well. But at the end of the day, one of the focuses is going to be on metrics in the data and what we'll be able to track and how that ties in with SLA adherence and continuous improvement. And as always, please let us know if you have any questions via the chat feature as we move along. So Jordan, if you can advance. In regard to the webinar objectives, we'll first want to explain why IT teams are struggling to keep up with organizational demands, identify obstacles that should be addressed, discuss how we might solve those problems, and define what a solid path forward looks like. However, before we dig into the meat of the presentation, let's do a quick rundown on DIOPATH's capabilities. I realize this might be a recap for some of you. So in regard to DIOPATH, we've been in the IT outsourcing business now for 26 years. So we've got longevity and a whole host of experience to help with IT strategy, IT support, IT security, and the like. We're co-headquartered in Houston and Chicago. We have round about 700 employees, so certainly some advantages of scale, yet based on our operational model and how we deliver services, we're still able to be very high touch with incorporating service delivery managers, customer service managers, and technical account managers. And then, as far as the organizations we typically work with, it's a mix of private sector, generally mid-market enterprise, and then public sector, namely education and federal agencies. We have service centers scattered across the U.S., in Texas, in Illinois, in New Jersey, in Florida, nearshore operations in Mexico, and a footprint in the United Kingdom. And then our resources are in 22 different states and counting. we have a very deep and broad bench of technical resources within our service desk, our network operations center, our security operations center, and certainly in the field supporting our value clients. Robust dispatch capabilities throughout North America and to most international markets. We are ITIL aligned, which we'll talk about a little bit later, very much metric driven. If you look at our managed service agreement, for example, there's 20 plus service level agreements that we are contracted to adhere to, and we're aligned to SOC 2, Type 2, and HIPAA as well. And then a fun fact about us, we have secret and top secret clearance with the U.S. government to placate some of our federal contracts. And the reason that's important for private sector is we've been audited, assessed, have to put in policies, procedures, processes, and employ the right type of folks, and private sector clients leverage off of what we've done to satisfy some of our government contracts. So Jordan, if we can move on to the next one. And because cybersecurity should be interwoven into everything that's happening on the technology front, it's worth noting our cybersecurity capabilities. DIOPATH has been providing advanced security services for going on 20 years now. We already mentioned a little bit about our US-based Security Operations Center. Very comfortable supporting regulated industries, regulated clients, defense industry base, energy sector, publicly traded companies, healthcare, retail, et cetera. But candidly, there are plenty of unregulated clients that we work with as well. And we've done some very sensitive work with federal agencies like the Department of Justice and the FBI, the Homeland Security, so the ICE division. We hosted electronic medical records for all of their employees, and support several other sensitive programs. And I'll just finish on the security front that we do a lot of advisory work, and it started back in 2006. We co-authored the NERC-CIP framework as part of a bid that we won. So we help utility companies go out and harden their IT security to be accredited and certified with the US government. So Jordan, if we want to advance. Last thing on DIOPATH, and I understand this might be a little bit of an eye chart. This is our service catalog, and I'll hone in on a few things. On the managed services side, very strong in providing end user support through our shared service desk, and then we have dedicated service desk models as well. So used to supporting hundreds and thousands of our clients' end users. And then our network operations center is co-located with our service desk. And so we're able to support network assets, critical systems and servers through the network operations center and our remote monitoring and management capabilities. We're seeing a high volume of demand as it relates to staff augmentation. So we're able to provide various resources from strategic roles, virtual CIO, virtual CISO, all the way down to level 1, desk side support and everything in between. And that can be delivered fractional, full-time, on-site, or remote. From a professional services perspective, we are able to help organizations deliver on projects that they may not be comfortable supporting internally. Things like cloud readiness assessments, cloud migrations, cloud optimization and rationalization, equipment refresh, network assessments. I could go on and on. And then, lastly, advanced security services, everything from assessments, security awareness training, social engineering campaigns, advisory services, so helping build security programs, security operations center as a service, so managed services, and lastly, incident response. So let's talk about the IT maturity model now that we've covered, who we are at a high level. So with the maturity model, it's important to understand where an organization sits relative to IT or digital maturity, because it then allows us to create a technology roadmap collectively with our clients in regard to solutions, services, and programs that should be deployed. So, for example, an organization that is operating in phase 1 or phase 2 may not be able to absorb solutions like service desk and security operations center as a service, because they're not ready, right? So we need to take a step back and assess where things are, and move from more of a chaotic or reactive mode. So 5 phases. Phase 1, go ahead.
This is one of the things that I would just add here is that I would say that as we're looking at 2022 and beyond, would you agree, Matt, that that approaching your business, each of our attendees' businesses and other, the rest of the industry, if we would take a look at our IT processes with this IT maturity model mindset, that would probably be one of the main things we'd be talking about today in terms of how should we deal with, how do we improve our IT shops? We're looking at 2022 and beyond, how do we improve them? It's with this maturity model, because each of our clients, they don't just have a single threaded IT. There's different towers, different functions within IT, and each of those areas may be at different levels of maturity and have different risks to the organization. Would you agree with that, Matt?
I would. I think that's spot on. And as we move through this, we'll talk about how services and solutions align to the various phases of the maturity model. And from our standpoint, there is a specific sequence to what are we going to add from an IT support perspective? When do we incorporate the different facets of security operations? When do we need to look at, regulatory compliance and governance? And so there is an order, and, based on what I was just saying, sometimes, organizations try to force, the services and solutions before they're ready, right? So if you look at phase 1 and 2, that's more of, IT supports in this chaotic, this reactionary role. It's certainly a bit like firefighting. And that note on 75% of organizations living here, that was gleaned from a study done by Deloitte, right? And so, as you look at phase 3, all of a sudden there's this presence of proactivity, monitoring, and management. So there's been investments in tools and process, along with the people. Phase 4, we feel there's this shift to tech and IT being aligned to organizational goals and objectives. And then we think phase 5 is really a utopia. Some organizations may strive to get there and never get there. So it's kind of, best in class. But Jesse, I think it's spot on what you're saying. So Jordan, if you want to, move to the next slide. What we've done here is we've mapped specific services and solutions to the various phases. So this essentially becomes a roadmap for what we feel organizations should be doing. So if an entity is in more of this chaos and reactionary mode, it's not a bad idea to take a step back, assess where things are, and then create a roadmap with what needs to be done, and then start to fill in all these bits and pieces as you move up into the right of the maturity model. So I think that's key. So Jesse, that's kind of where you're going, right, with your comments.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. When you're in chaos and or you're reactive, right? The professional services there, because at that point, you're just trying to plug the holes in the dike, right? You know, but each of these other
Exactly.
services are designed to be delivered when an environment, when a client, when a company is ready for these next steps, maturity wise, for their organization, not just their technology, but their organization overall.
Yeah,
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 absolutely.
absolutely. So yeah, think of this as a run book, sequencing priority for projects, for IT operational initiatives, for security operations, advisory and strategy, and then even the governance and regulatory compliance and, Jesse, your point, risk management, risk mitigation. So Jordan, if we can move on to the next one, I'd appreciate it. Now there's a basic understanding of, how we see digital and IT maturity. Probably a good idea to talk about some challenges that we're seeing in the field. And, candidly, if we can identify obstacles, it will aid in, taking measures to improve, support overall, right? And some of these are, I would say, fairly obvious. So, IT teams can't break away from the tactics of keeping things afloat, day to day, right? And so what that means is they get less time to spend on elevated and strategic tasks. Same token, getting stuck in the tactical mud also results in, technology not keeping up with organizational needs. So it feels like the IT department is getting pulled along rather than staying one step ahead. And we mentioned a little bit earlier, there's most certainly a challenge with the labor market, right? So we're all feeling the ill effects of a difficult labor market. Things like availability of resources, costs are steadily increasing, turnover, experience. That's creating a lot of pressure on IT departments. In many cases, we see either the absence of metrics and data, or there isn't the review of data that may be available. And this data is important to dictate the plan moving forward. And we're going to drill down into that later. And then, service delivery problems are fairly rampant, right? There may be an understanding of what to do, but then it boils down to how do we execute, and there's a breakdown on that. And then lastly, the need for governance and regulatory compliance. So that is disrupting the flow of IT because, again, folks are getting pushed and pulled to help, with adherence, for example, of regulatory compliance. So Jesse, anything else here?
Yeah, you know what? I would invite any of the attendees to in the chat just throw in some of the other support challenges you're seeing, so maybe we can address those later on. But I guess the only other one that I might add to your pretty exhaustive list here, Matt, is this issue of legacy technology and processes, right? Because we see that what companies have put in place worked at that time, was great in 2005. But it's not sized, it's not scaled, and it's not capable to handle let's just say the security requirements of today, to be able to pass on alerts or to integrate with a different system, that sort of thing. So I think those are some of the challenges we have as well.
Yeah, thanks for that. So Jordan, if we can move to the next one, please. Okay, so we've got a high-level understanding of obstacles and gaps. That means we're in a better position to create a solid game plan moving forward, right? Easily said, harder to kind of execute. But, at DIOPATH, we see a few things as critical when plotting out the game plan. So I think, looking in the rearview mirror is certainly important, but, only if for example, historical data is used to refine and improve the IT support function. So we want to help foster and kind of facilitate this forward-thinking culture where we're always looking for continuous improvement. Yeah, I think it's also important to continuously loop back with the business, organization, the various functional areas and departments to understand how technology can become an enabler versus an inhibitor. And then, the organizations need to translate into, what that looks like from an IT project and program perspective. One of the areas that we want to highlight specifically today, because it's become a pitfall, is identifying a project versus a program. So typically a project has, a start date, an end date, whereas programs are something that need ongoing support. And so, if we define what a project is versus a program, then we can understand the different operational structure that's required. And our feeling is programs fail because they don't have the right ongoing operational structure to support them. And then, at the end of the day, it boils down to, executing on some of these plans. So, Jesse, your 2 cents?
Again, great list there, because the kind of planning what you're going to do and how technology is going to be accountable to helping the business drive forward their goals. Because it is first about what the business goals are of each company, right? So planning how that glove in hand cooperation is going to happen, so that technology is accountable to the business, not the other way around. And I would say getting working on as you plan, then getting the consensus with the business team that these things that we're trying to do here are going to help the business.
Yeah. Absolutely. Jordan, so we can move on to the next one. So, what we see in the field is there's a lot of technology decisions that are made in a vacuum, because, that's how things have been, right? So, in order for us to help our valued clients align technology to meet strategic goals and objectives, we leverage a proven process. We call it the Strategic Transition Support Plan. Maybe that's a little misleading. We certainly use it during onboarding, when a company or an organization uses for managed services, but it's something that's used on an ongoing basis. And, the gist of it is, if we can understand the business information model, M&A activity, goals and objectives, how companies make money, how they delight their customers, how they maintain employees, then that is ultimately going to dictate what the underlying infrastructure on the tech side needs to look like. And that's going to filter down into what the optimal support plan looks like, and not the other way around. And so to the extent we can leverage this process, we want to, because that's how we get alignment between technology and where an organization needs to go overall. So, Jesse, love to get your thoughts here.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect. This transition model that we've adopted is very much based on Lean Six Sigma principles of not just paying attention to the process, the technology that's happening, like the center part of this screen here, but around the unintended consequences, the other stakeholders. So who else is involved in the process, making sure their needs and wants are considered, and you're taking a look at what's the input to these processes, how do we optimize that, and also make sure that the output we're getting is what the downstream stakeholders need. So it's very much an industry standard to include not just the single few people that are involved in that one process, but the stakeholders to it. So absolutely, keep going.
Yeah, great. Jordan, if we move on to the next one. So, as we work through the STSP process, we've found that projects and programs typically fall into, pillars, columns, and we lump them as, policies and procedures, some more strategic and advisory related, Certainly technology, right? We have tools, instrumentation, software, hardware, performance, so leveraging IT service management, contact center, configuration management database, knowledge management databases. So that all ties back to, performance and KPIs. And then absolutely risk, resiliency, and security. And so it's important to understand how programs and projects align to these buckets so that we leverage the right resources, both internally and through partners that you guys might use, like DIOPATH. And I'll give you a few anecdotes. So, it'd be unfair to ask a tactical and technical resource to take the lead in developing or tuning an overarching IT security program, right? It's not fair to the individual. It's not fair to the organization. And, that initiative's likely destined to fail. Or, on the security front, we talk about this, all the time. If you're going to engage on a security initiative, you want folks to think like threat actors, right? Versus maybe IT folks that are straddling the fence that don't have that same type of point of view, or even experience. So it's getting the right resources engaged so that it gives you the best possible chance of success as you move this plan forward. So Jesse, love to hear your feedback here.
Absolutely. I think the thing that would then embrace all of these is then the need for communication, because all of this comes around to every one of these points. We've got things we could address, the need to baseline your performance. So when you're measuring, if you're improving or not, and that kind of stuff, all that. But the bottom line is, if you're not communicating well, to be more successful, to be best in class, you need to be doing all these things and communicating throughout the organization so we know where we're being successful, where we're having the right focus on endpoint protection, right? Where you use your devices, or the impact of security, or do we have the right people accessing the right data at the same time? And it helps people understand what those risks are, what their roles are in the organization, and where we're going. So I would just add communication, ties it all together.
Yeah, great point. So Jordan, if we can move on to our next slide, which is the topic of assessments. And so, I find this interesting. So on the security front, I think everyone's gotten into a really good habit and cadence of, we need to assess security in general yearly, maybe even, more frequently. And that's great. Baselining where you're at, those gaps, where do we remediate? But what I find interesting is, if you just look at IT in general, those assessments don't occur often enough. And we wish there was more of a focus there, because if you assess and that assessment is comprehensive and strategic, you can recalibrate what you're doing with IT operations and support to effectively serve the organization. It will help drive change, and not having the blinders on and having tech be in the target, right? Technology is certainly one component, but operations, resiliency, risk, staff, what does your vendors and partner relationships look like? What are you doing from a career development perspective, process, policies, governance, and we can go on and on, but these should be factored in so that we have this complete picture, and then I'd say better clarity in what we need to do, together moving forward. Jesse, sure you agree with that?
Absolutely. I agree with everything you're saying there. And I think one of the things I like about this slide is that all of these are different areas and parts of the IT area that need to be addressed. And so this is not just a tactical security assessment, a one-time, one and done, right? This is an ongoing strategic mindset that says, do I understand where I am throughout the organization in each different area of the organization? And am I periodically coming back to confirm, are we improving? Are we making the direction we need to? And that can be with internal folks on just a kind of regular review of what's going on. You could do it with bringing in outside partners like us or other consultants to do that for you. But ultimately, your organization has to have the mindset of, we have to look at what we're doing, assess if we're doing the right stuff, determine where we should be going. And that's a basic framework of any compliance program, any improvement program, and it crosses the whole organization. But it definitely starts with IT.
Yeah. So Jordan, can you click ahead one? So, typically what happens is an assessment's done, deliverable lands on the table in the inbox, and it includes a whole host of action items and remediation steps, which can be daunting and overwhelming. So just know that there are partners like us that can assist in refining the IT support and operational function. And I'd say it's more important now than ever, back to some of the challenges with the labor market and staffing. And so if you look at our client engagement model, know that over more than 2 decades, we've built some pretty robust capabilities to take care of end users, level 1, level 2, and level 3, right, service desk, to help you support your network assets, your servers, your systems, to address third-party vendor management and triage, certainly on the cybersecurity front, infrastructure. So there's all these kind of tactical, mundane, keeping the lights on type tasks that need to happen to keep the organization afloat. We're built for that, and we continue to enhance those offerings. And then to the extent there's a fit, and a client will let us, we move that waterline north, and we can certainly inject advisory and strategic capabilities where necessary. Right, Jesse?
Yep, you got it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So if we want to move on. So, this is, we're going to shine a light on one of the areas that I think we excel at. And it's a little bit of the secret sauce to ensuring that we're adhering to service levels and we're keeping our clients happy. So, you'll hear the term service delivery manager or technical account manager, or acronyms for those 2 roles. But this is really the glue from our perspective. So you have something like service desk or NOC, or even on-site resources that are assisting in various roles. But to have somebody that's really running the program, tracking projects, holding people accountable, hosting weekly tactical calls, engaging with the executive leadership team for quarterly business reviews, right, and leveraging that STSP process. The SDM brings all of it together, and I think creates just an immense amount of value for the services that we're bringing to the market. So Jesse, I don't know if there's other examples that you have where an SDM may play an important role.
Yeah, I mean, we've got service delivery managers. I'm thinking of one right now where we've got a service delivery manager working with one of the portfolio companies in a PE company. And this company has been growing through acquisition. They've purchased 50 new businesses in the past year. And this service delivery manager is smack in the middle of that process there, helping the company, helping this portfolio company ingest each of these companies into the standard operating system, the standard operating process for onboarding people, for monitoring the infrastructure, for doing all that sort of thing, and to be able to identify where there are remediation things that are needed to bring these companies together. And when you've got somebody who can help kind of bridge that gap and make sure that operations are going while the projects are happening and while you have these integration activities, and every company's got their portfolio of those different challenges. That's where a strong SDM who understands ITIL processes, who understands the business objectives, can help make sure that the technology and the process, the people, processes, and tools all work together to deliver what our clients are looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Jordan, if you want to advance. I think, the advantage, we talked about how we've built services, solutions, we've got, people and process in place. By partnering with us, there's a way to achieve, in my opinion, instant and then sustained improvement. And I'll give you a few examples, right? If an organization isn't aligned to an operational framework, and then, they engage DIOPATH for services, being that we're aligned to something like ITIL, right, or even SOC 2, Type 2, you instantly get the advantages that framework brings, right? And ITIL is information technology infrastructure library built in the UK. We leverage it to ensure that everything we do with technology aligns and enables a business or an organization. Another example is templates, right? And run books that we've created over the years. I wish I could share my screen. If you could see my screen right now, there's a workflow on change management. We get a lot of questions about how do we create a change advisory board, and entities can flex into what we've created over time, and it doesn't have to just be change management. It can be incident management, crisis management. So we've got those playbooks that we can immediately insert into the process to drive improvement sooner rather than later. The tools that we vetted out and continue to vet out are best in class. And then we've talked about KPIs and metrics and kind of scratch the surface. We're tracking all these different bits and pieces of data so that we can understand what trends are there, if there's any chronic issues, and how we can incorporate continuous improvement as we look at this information. So Jesse, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this ties back to the earlier slide about IT maturity, though, right? Because these are the frameworks that a best-in-class company like us is going to bring to each of our clients, and each of our clients should be looking for in their business so that they can improve. And there's not a need to rigidly follow everything in ITIL, or to use every metric or KPI out there. What we want to do is be using the part that use the framework that gives us the go forward plan. So we've got the standard operating procedures, but they're flexible enough to allow for us to continually improve, to be able to say, hey, this last month we've been focusing on improving response rates. But now that we've got that nailed, the next thing we want to deal with is the CSAT scores. And so how we continue to use those frameworks and the tools to introduce more as we mature, as we improve, I think that's probably key here.
Want to show you just a glimpse of what's possible with integration and with data. So we leverage Power BI, and we've integrated it with one of our ITSM platforms and with one of our phone systems, and so there is a lot of customization that can occur here. But again, the reality is if we have data, the data tells a story, and then we can take the appropriate action, based on data. And back to being metric driven, we have 20 plus service level agreements in our MSA or contract. And so in our opinion, the only way that we can truly be judged on if we're doing a good job or a bad job is, are we doing what we said we were going to do in the sales process? And as we carry on with the partnership, and this helps us with that. So just a few things, right? I mean, so we can create a dashboard that looks at key performance metrics, on a client by client basis, things like average hold time, first call resolution, CSAT scores, how long are tickets in queue, so what does the aging look like, abandonment rate. So there's a whole host of information that we can dig into. We really like a few metrics, and hopefully this will load up in a timely fashion. But first call resolution is key to us. So I think we're operating close to 85% first call resolution if somebody were to contact our service desk, and we can kind of trend that data, and we can dig into all these bits and pieces of what were the tickets that were being logged, right? Were these tied to a specific technology, a process? So you can understand that if we're tracking the 85%, how do we improve that? But we're making our clients' employees more efficient and more profitable to the organization if we're resolving problems quickly and getting them back on their way, right? If they had troubles. And then another one to pick on is CSAT. So after tickets closed out on our side, in every instance, we survey folks that open those tickets, and we want to determine what we did well, maybe areas of improvement, and that could help clear up a miscommunication. That could be a teachable moment on our side, so that we're increasing our performance and capabilities. So you get an understanding of how this data is important. And Jesse, I'm sure you have some anecdotes here too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing I like about the thing I think about our Power BI reporting and all that is it's I think it's one of the secret sauces that we have, and that certainly we want our clients to have. Actually, we're in all companies to have, because static dashboards that don't allow you to drill in and change the view of what you're looking at to try to identify real time what some of the problems might be. That's a hindrance for a business. And the fact that we use these reports to ingest multiple data streams from a company to be able to report these, to be able to report what's going on, to be able to do problem resolution for that service delivery manager to say, hey, you know what, this month we've had 50 more tickets on call drops. What's happening here? Maybe there's a problem with the phone system. And that's the kind of thing that really allows us to add value to our engagements, right? Because with any client, you're either adding value daily or you're yesterday's news. And we want the technology we've deployed for our clients to tell a story and help that client move towards the goals that they have for their business.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, just tying this back to the service delivery manager, right, who is making sure that this data is kind of front and center, doing the trend analysis and offering up suggestions, is going to be important. So, I'll give you, I guess, another anecdote here. So there's a high level of customization that we can, take care of. An example. A company in a highly regulated space that deals with sensitive data wanted a process for self-reporting. So if our team, if their team was exposed to sensitive data, they needed to be made aware of it, and not only aware of it, but also needed an audit trail of sorts if they were being, audited by an outside party, or if there was even, let's say, legal action, right, against them. And so, we developed a way to report on a scenario where somebody was exposed to sensitive data. So there's a whole host of ways that we can leverage Power BI, the data, and really add, I'd say, maximum value as we work with organizations out there.
And Matt, let's not undersell. Let's not underscore that one also. That allows us to bring in data from so many different sources, right? Where maybe a client they're using a ticketing system that doesn't give them the kind of the visibility into what their problems are as deeply or as dynamically as they'd want to. We can certainly ingest that data source, or maybe they've got multiple companies using different systems. We can go ahead and ingest all that, commonize, and bring it into a reporting dashboard with based on Power BI, for example. So that ability to bring in multiple data streams, especially where a client, maybe like the government or somebody else, they're keyed in on only using the tool in a certain way, and it's very highly regulated. We can go ahead and take those data streams and help them give them the insights that they don't have right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about a few different case studies, and then I think we've got time for maybe a question or two. So if you haven't had a chance and you want to pop a question in the chat, please do so. So a few case studies: commercial real estate management company. Mid-market, as far as size, a few thousand employees, 40 locations. We determined that they were getting bogged down by workstation builds, right? Because there was a hiring, binge that was happening, and help desk couldn't keep up with the builds and their day-to-day support. And then the other problem that they had was the branch offices were frustrated with the lack of local resources. So they had, a gap, a blind spot with dispatch capabilities. So, the solution was, service desk, centralized service desk, a single point of contact to ingest, requests like building, 15 workstations on a monthly basis, creating a process for that as an example, and then certainly fielding requests for, on-site dispatches for a whole host of reasons, right? Maybe it was a branch was going to move and needed a site survey. Maybe there was equipment that needed to be RMA'd and introduced in the environment. So, the outcome here was we freed up valuable time so that we could elevate the internal resources to work on things that were, I'd say more important, right, to goals and objectives of, the organization. And then, second case study, this one's interesting. Global marine, manufacturer. Again, another mid-market. Multiple locations scattered around the U.S. The challenge they had was one of, support in the model. It was disconnected. So they had a mix of contractors, MSPs, internal resources, depending on where the branch offices were. In the globe. And so what happened was that led to fractured support. There were CSAT issues, and, there's a fair amount of turnover. So just getting institutional knowledge and that knowledge transfer into the hands of a new person, a new support entity, was a real thorn in the CIO's side. So again, solution, global centralized service desk. And we introduced foreign language capabilities, and that really streamlined things. It certainly cut costs, but more importantly, it increased CSAT and how resources valued IT, and it resolved churn issues. And then I'll leave you with this last one. Financial firm, 250 employees. after, COVID reared its ugly head, work from anywhere. And, I've seen that, folks working in offices are down to around 33% of what it was, pre-pandemic. So I think everyone understands, work from anywhere is not going away anytime soon. But that created some challenges. They migrated to cloud first, cloud only. And so, we made a comment about IT not being able to keep up with the necessary, velocity, goals and objectives. And so, a migration happened to DIOPATH, and we were able to, modernize IT support and operations almost overnight. I mean, that's a little bit of an exaggeration. It took us 30 to 60 days to get to steady state, but, we improved support immediately. So just some food for thought on, a few examples. And I think because we're out of time, the only point I'll make here is, just like security, IT operations and support is a journey, not a destination. So it's exploring, it's discovering, it's developing the right solutions, working on execution and delivery. How do we optimize? How do we keep everyone accountable? And then we start all over again, right, is kind of the takeaway. So Jesse, any parting notes before we adjourn the webinar?
Yeah, I think closing on that proven process of closed loop cycle and continuing to do accountability improvements and optimizations is key, because at the end of the day, if you may have designed the perfect solution for whatever the process is for 10 years ago, and it's horribly out of date now. It doesn't meet the goals of the organization anymore, and so we use this process to have those crucial conversations on a regular basis to say, hey, this was great, but does it still meet your needs right now? Here's some suggestions we have for how to improve, how to modify what's been successful so it continues to be that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know we're a little bit over. We certainly appreciate everyone's time. Hopefully you found some value and benefit in spending some time with us. And we look forward to talking with you and seeing you soon. Take care, everyone.